Hi, I am Amy Stark, and I'm an energy healer and transformation coach. And I want to talk to you about how stuck emotions in the body can create chronic pain. So this is a clinical brain-based strategy for dealing with chronic pain. I'm going to give you an example of a woman who I worked with. She is 69 years old and she has MS, and she has been diagnosed for 20 years. And she's had chronic hip, back, and skin pain. So I decided to use tapping or emotional freedom technique to help her with this pain that she was having in her hip. So she's had this pain for as long as she can remember, and her pain level was a 10 when we started working. And she and I worked on the fact that she wasn't moving forward in her life because she had MS and she was bedridden most of the time and doesn't have the energy that she needs to, continue to live on her own. So she needs the help of her daughter. So together, because I can see energy and I can see what emotional energy is stored in the body, I realized that this was about moving forward in life because that's what the hips help you do. But also I looked at her past and I saw that when she was 13 years old, she had trouble with the transition within the house from moving within the rooms in the house. And so as we tapped on that, the pain level went from a 10 all the way down to a 0. So this happened in the course of about 30 to 40 minutes. So that's pretty amazing to watch. So after she had, we had tapped and it had gone down to a 0, I was able to have her try to walk and see if she could feel the pain, and she could not. So she also had chronic skin pain. And this skin pain started after she had back surgery about a year and a half ago. And the level of pain that she had was a 10. So if any time something brushed against her legs, so the pain was from her mid-back down. So if anything, would graze against her skin, she would feel like it was on fire. So it was like around a 10, she said. And as we tapped on the fact that she had the surgery, because I knew that this it started happening when she had the surgery. So what we did was tapped on different parts of the surgery based on the energy that I was seeing. So, about being rushed and things like that. And she's somebody who doesn't have a lot of trust in other people. And so we tapped on that as well. And as we tapped on that, the pain level went all the way down to a 0. So to think that, this chronic pain that she had on her skin, where anything would graze against her skin would give her a 10 in pain. And now when something was grazing against her right after we finished tapping and it was a 0, she was stunned. Even though she's, noticed other things that we've tapped on and they go away, she couldn't believe that this actually had worked as well. So that's an interesting technique for getting rid of skin pain, which you would probably think would be difficult to do. So the next example I'm going to give you is about a woman who had or has chronic neck pain, and she was experiencing a migraine and it was lasting for 4 days, and she was not getting any sleep. She was crying. She decided to take some pain medicines that she doesn't normally take, and her blood pressure dropped and she actually passed out. So she realized she couldn't take those anymore based on what happened to her body the first time. So she just was in a lot of pain and contacted me, and we decided to do some tapping. And so I asked her, based on the fact that it's in this area, that it must be related to something that she didn't say that she wanted to say. So because I am good at looking at what the energy is in the body and the emotion that's attached to it, I was able to notice that it was related to her not speaking her truth to a friend of hers, and then also a few things around not speaking up to her kids about things that she needed from her kids. So as we were tapping, she was at a 20 is what she said, but based on 10, we can surmise that she really meant a 10, and she went all the way down to a 2. So that night she slept through the night, and then the next day she woke up and she didn't have any pain in her body. So you might wonder, how is this even possible? How is she able to go from having a 20 and then 40 minutes later, without taking any drugs, to a 0, and then waking up and not having that pain again? So This is because the human body is energetic. And when we start calming the body and we start changing the way that the cells are communicating and the way that the information is flowing in the body, we're able to change the way people feel. So I said that cells communicate through energy. So you may or may not be familiar with this, but Bruce Lipton did an experiment where he took 2 cells and put them in a petri dish, and he was able to remove the nucleus of the cell, which many people believe that the nucleus of the cell is the brain of the cell. And so if you remove the nucleus of the cell or the brain of the cell, then the cell would die. When he did that, the cell didn't die. And not only that, the cell, when he put something good near it, gravitated towards it. And when he took something away from it, or sorry, put something that was bad for it, it moved away from it. So something else was sensing the environment and signaling to the cell what it should do. So basically, how to stay safe. So he realized that it was actually not the nucleus that was the brain of the cell, but probably the membrane, the outside of the cell that was communicating with the outside environment and gaining information and then using that to, function. So if you have trillions of cells in your body and they're all communicating energetically, then you're actually a walking antenna. So when you are radiating out energy and other people are reading it, you are influencing the environment and also gaining information from the environment. And you probably know that when a client comes in or a patient comes in and you just look at them and you know this is not what they typically look like. They clearly are in a lot of pain, or something terrible has happened to them. You can just pick up on that vibe. You just know. And that's because the energy is radiating out from them. And, especially pain, for us people in the health and wellness field, we're very sensitive to other people who are in pain or need help. So here's an example of how the body is communicating electrically. So when we are, let's say we have a fear of snakes. So we're taking a walk outside and we're totally calm, we're enjoying the day, and then a snake comes by, and all of a sudden, if you're afraid of snakes, you probably will jump about 5 feet in the air. Your heart will start racing, your palms might get sweaty, before you know it, you're halfway down the block, or wherever you are, you're about a mile away from where you were. It's because you saw something and the signal was sent through your whole body. And that was based on a survival signal. So your body was able to jump into action and get going because that was what was going to keep you the safest. So if you want to look at it electrical versus chemical, a chemical signal would come from, ibuprofen or Advil or something like that if you had a headache. So we all know that usually takes about 20 minutes for the body to break down the Advil, and then that will send the signal throughout the body. So it's a much slower signal. So if we're trying to influence the body in a quick, effective way, energy might be the best way to do that. So the HeartMath Institute is doing research on how we influence others with our energy. So when we are near somebody who is radiating love, our brain actually picks up on it. And so when we're showing compassion to somebody, it's going to actually help to possibly heal them because they're going to be picking up on the higher vibration of love. And then that's going to create a field that's more coherent. And so the HeartMath Institute is looking at a healthy, coherent field and the benefits from that. And if we are using tapping to help move out energy, that would be making a field that's incoherent because you're in pain. Then one could think that, doing some EFT or emotional freedom tapping, you might be able to increase your coherence and thus your immune system and your connection with others. And you tend to be more creative when you're in a more coherent field. So when we look at the field and what it's emanating out, we understand that also we are taking in information, and there are different ways that the cellular information will get confused. So this would be any communication between two cells can get disrupted by either like a physical injury, a toxin, or an emotion. And these are some more examples of how that communication can break down in the body. If you have a poor diet, obviously that's going to be putting toxins in your body. And if you're not supporting your genes in the ways that they need to be supported, you're not going to have the same kind of level of communication. Things are going to break down. Same thing with the psychological state. That's, stress changes your heart rate variability, and stress changes your field in terms of it being coherent or incoherent. And so all of these things can either support or they can detract from the cells communicating properly with each other. So this is epigenetics, and we know that if we want to enhance the system, we want to enhance the signals that are coming to the system. And EFT is a way to enhance the signal that is going to the system based on taking something that's a stressor for the body and down-regulating it for the body. So how do emotions create blocked energy and pain in the body? So we are constantly storing information from our environment so that we are able to survive. So when we're able to survive, that information is helpful, but it's not always something that we need to contain within our body. Like, we can use that information and remember it, but we don't want to feel it all the time. So if we go back to the first example of when my client, who's 69 years old and has MS, she didn't like the transition that happened when she was 13 years old, where she got, all her brothers and sisters were in one room. And then as, things transitioned in the house and they put on an addition, the kids spread out and she felt alone and she felt unsafe. And there were a couple other things that were going on that she remembered within her body, but even her brain, she didn't remember it. I actually brought it up and she's like, I'm not sure what you're talking about. And then as we started tapping and as we started moving the energy out, she was like, oh, I remember that transition that I was referring to when she was 13 years old within her house. And she said, we put an addition on and everybody moved, rooms. And that really was upsetting to me. And I really didn't like feeling like I was abandoned, and I didn't, my brothers and sisters were in totally different places. And it was around the same time when her grandfather passed away. And so she had a memory of any time that, things start to move and evolve, there could be death involved. So she had a very serious link within her hips to transition. So this is one example of how emotions can create blocked energy in the body and cause pain. So as soon as we found that energy and we released it, she was able to have no pain in her hips. So psychoneuroimmunology is where energy psychology is looking at how the brain is communicating with the body and thus the immune system. And so if we remove that pain, you can imagine that she's going to have, a happier disposition because she's not in pain, and she's going to be under less stress. And that stress is going to boost her, the lack of stress is going to boost her immune system because she's happier. She actually has more hope. And she's now not afraid of transitions such as moving forward in her life and going into, a place where she can have her own place where she's not depending on her daughter to take care of her. So, what's interesting about all this is that people aren't aware of this energy that they had in their body because they don't sit with it when it happens. Most of the time when we, for instance, like, when she was 13 years old, you just blow through that energy or you blow through that situation and you're just like, I'm here. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm 13 years old. My parents are telling me that my brothers and sisters are going to move to another room, and there goes my grandfather passed away, and there's nothing I can do. I'm very upset about that. And so they log that information, but then they keep moving on in their life and they don't sit down and they don't reflect on that time period and what it did to them. And what happens is over time we just ignore our thoughts and we never really sit down and observe them. And so what's interesting is there was a study that was done, and most people have 60 to 70% negative thoughts though they think that they have 60 to 70% positive thoughts. And so until we sit down and we start looking at the energy or the information that's being stored in the body based on, having some quiet time to like either meditate or work with somebody who is intuitive like myself, who can read the energy, we're able to find those thoughts and we're able to help release them. But the beauty of all this with EFT is that when you take the time to do EFT, the energy or information that has been stored in the body will start to move out without you even being cognizant of what that information is. So we'll get to how that works in a minute. So the more mindfulness techniques that we do, the greater your heart rate variability becomes, and the greater your energetic coherence becomes, and it'll make you feel more in the flow, more creative, less stressed, and you'll have a greater immune response. So this is the benefit of doing EFT or meditation. So taking a look at the energy that's stored in the body, whether it's through sitting in meditation and observing, different pains in your body and possibly asking questions, or working with somebody who might be able to find them. But either way, when you sit down and do EFT, you can get to move out that energy without actually having to know exactly what's in there. The body is remembering it, but when we start pairing this calming feeling, your body is all of a sudden going to start to move out that energy, and then it's not going to be stored anymore. Your body's just giving it a way for it to be released. So as I said before, energy psychology is looking at this interaction of like, how are we able to calm somebody down who has anxiety with EFT? How are we able to help remove pain or decrease pain with EFT? How are we able to help people who have PTSD with EFT? So this is all being studied for about the last 10 years, but more so even now. There's just study after study keeps coming out about how beneficial this is and how important it is for us to be utilizing this as clinicians to help our clients or patients to feel better. So what's the science behind it? So this is so fascinating to me because every time that we have a thought, so for instance, if we are somebody who has a lot of anxiety, and every time we see the color purple, we get anxiety. So we are creating a network in our brain that gets solidified every single time we see that color purple. Sorry about that. Every time we see that color purple, we are thinking, oh my gosh, that's life-threatening. Because basically somewhere in our past, we thought that the color purple was paired with something that was life-threatening. So the color purple, maybe we got punched in the face right before it or something like that when we were a kid, when we saw a purple shirt and then we got punched in the face. So that's the pairing that we have. And every time we see the color purple, we get that anxiety of, oh my gosh, something's going to happen. Now, granted, with the color purple, you probably eventually realize that, it's safe. You're not going to get punched in the face every time, but this is just an example. So over time, if there really was a trigger like, that was life-threatening, you would then obviously keep getting escalated in your anxiety. So if this network gets created, you have to take down that network. So by normally seeing the color purple and having a lot of anxiety, you are going to pair that with tapping, which is very calming. So we're going to be utilizing the meridians of the body. And those meridians are the places where a lot of this information is stored, energetically speaking. So when we tap on the meridian, so this is one of the meridians we're going to be tapping on, we are releasing the energy that may be caught up in that meridian that may be causing that loop of like, every time I see the color purple, I get anxiety. So that's just one example. But, you can also look at pain. So, every time you have a knee injury and it really hurts, and you think back to the time when you hurt your knee, let's say it was in a soccer game. So every time you see soccer, your knee starts to hurt, or somebody playing soccer, your knee starts to hurt, or you, even think about soccer and your knee starts to hurt. And you don't even realize it until you start to go back and you start to look at, wow, you know, my knee always hurts because of that injury when I was playing soccer. So maybe I'm going to start tapping on that. Maybe I'm going to tap on my knee injury. So I'm going to say, even though I have this knee injury from playing soccer, I deeply love and accept myself. So this would be a pairing of the pain and the anxiety. So sometimes we don't have pain in a body part, right? And sometimes we do. And sometimes it can be triggered by an event that happened where we hurt ourselves. So that's the pairing that I'm talking about. So if you're thinking about soccer and your knee is hurting you, you've made this pairing. So ultimately, what you're trying to do is you're trying to calm the body by tapping, all the while your body is in a heightened state. And that pairing of something calm and a heightened state, your brain needs to do some reconsolidation. So your brain is getting mixed signals. So it reconsolidates the memory and you form a new neural network. So this new neural network will be about half as much or less than what you started out with. So if you had a level 10 anxiety, it will come down to a level, 7 or 8. And then if you do another round of tapping, it'll go down to a 5 and maybe a 4 and a 3. And then you work all the way down to like a 2 or to 0. And, the memory has now been reconsolidated and you find it amazing because you can see a snake or you can, see the color purple or whatever, anything that would cause a lot of anxiety. And it's completely decreased by a lot. Or if you have pain, you have now given the body the opportunity to move out that energy and the pain level goes down. So these are the points for emotional freedom tapping. So there's a point that's here, the karate chop point. So we usually do this. And then there's one at the top of the head. So it's actually a little bit further back when you're doing tapping. So it's back here. And then there's the inner eyebrow. And then there's the outer eye. And then there's under the eye. Then there's under the nose. And then there's in the chin crease. And then this is K27, which is right here. So you can go like this. And then there's under the arm. So you can do a monkey kind of. So it's where a woman's bra line would be. So those are the different points. And you are going to tap on them when you do EFT. So I will do an example of how to do this. Okay, so we are going to do somebody who has some shoulder pain. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the energy of the body. So if you study the energy body, you know that there are different chakras and they contain different information. And this part of the body is the 5th chakra. So this is where people either speak their truth or not. And it can become blocked if they're not speaking their truth. So also in this area, you can also imagine, people have been saying for years, I have a weight on my shoulders, things like that, or everything falls on my shoulders, that kind of thing where they're not speaking their truth, they're not asking for help. And so there might be some congestion of energy there. So if you have a client who continues to have pain in their shoulders, you might ask them, what might you not be saying? Where are you not asking for help? How do you feel like it all falls on your shoulders? And then you would be able to begin the tapping. So let's say this person has a level 10 in pain on their shoulders. So what you might say is, even though I have this pain in my shoulders at a level 10, I deeply love and accept myself. Even though I have this feeling like everything falls on my shoulders, I deeply love and accept myself. Then you're going to go up top. You're going to say, even though I have this level 10 in this shoulder pain, I deeply love and accept myself. Even though I have this level 10 shoulder pain, I deeply love and accept myself. And then you're going to go to the inner eyebrow, this level 10 pain. Everything falls on my shoulders. Why can't I ask for help? I need help. Even though I don't ask for help, I deeply love and accept myself. Even though I feel like it all falls on my shoulders, I deeply love and accept myself. Even though my neck pain and shoulder pain is at a 10, I deeply love and accept myself. Even though I have this neck and shoulder pain where I feel like everything falls on my shoulders, and I felt like that for years, I deeply love and accept myself. Now, I also like to include the heart chakra or heart space or thymus. It's up to you. So I say, even though I have all this pain, I deeply love and accept myself. Even though this level pain, this pain is at a level 10, I deeply love and accept myself. And then you can ask your client or patient and say, now what is your pain level at? And they'll say a 7 or an 8. And then you can do another round. And what you can do is you can start to ask more questions. And you can say, when was the earliest time that you felt like you had this huge weight on your shoulders? You know, when do you think that you decided that you needed to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders? You know, you can ask them questions like that. And if you're intuitive, you might say, you know, something maybe around 7 years old is coming up. I don't know if you feel comfortable saying something like that to your client or patient, but you could say, you know, did anything happen in grade school for you? And then you can go from there and you can just talk to the body. Sometimes the body remembers and the brain does not. So sometimes when I'm picking up when a client may have had a traumatic experience in grade school and they felt like the weight of the world was on their shoulders, they may not remember it until we start moving the energy. And then sometimes they're like, oh yeah, I remember everybody in my class, you know, I was in this group and nobody did any of their project. And so I was the only one that did the project, and everybody in the class, the whole weight of the project was on me. So that would be something that you would tap on. And then you might notice that as soon as they acknowledge that energy, it is able to move out of the body and the person is able to feel more comfortable. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation of how you can use EFT and, you know, intuition and, you know, going through the different energy centers if you want to study those and figure out, you know, where is the particular information stored in the body, such as, you know, the lower back is where we don't feel supported, you know, so if somebody has lower back issues, they don't feel supported in life, or they may have financial worries. So that would be somewhere where you might want to check in with them and say, how are your finances? Where are you feeling not supported? You can take a look at the other energy centers in the body of, like, you know, if it's their hips and knees, and that's about moving forward in life, or you can look at their head. That would be about them predicting a lot of things, and then their head is actually moving forward. And as you know, if your head is moving forward and you're trying to seek out energy or information constantly with your head, you're going to have more neck pain. So that would be more about them predicting about how they're not going to be able to speak their truth. So these are just different ways that you can take a look at, you know, how you can help your clients in more outside of the box ways. Thank you for joining me. I really enjoyed this.